And we are live. Welcome to Josh and Aaron Talk About Stuff. I am Josh.
And I am Aaron.
And welcome to the series premiere and the season premiere of Josh and Aaron Talk About Stuff. This season, we're going to be talking about music.
My favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah. And while we will be talking about music in a chronological order, where it's not a history lesson, it's not a history show.
No, not even a little.
That way. And we're just going to talk about music that interests us and how it relates to the world as well, and its importance and impact. And before we get going, though, since we were just speaking about music the other day, you picked up the self-titled of Pearl Jam. It seems like every week we talk about Pearl Jam.
I've been on a Pearl Jam kick lately. I mean, I just have been. It's fantastic. I love it. I don't know why. I don't know why some people. I don't know why it got panned by some people, because I think it's fantastic.
I think it's better than Riot Act. It's probably better. I don't know if it's better than Binaural, because I really like that album a lot.
Sure.
It's definitely kind of like a come back to who we are as far as like Yield and all that stuff. But it's a good album.
It's like it's kind of it's kind of a aggressive, straightforward rock, but it's got some quiet songs on it, But it's good. It just really just kind of punches. That's why I like it.
I think Gigaton is also while it's cool and innovative, it's still like that's Pearl Jam.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
yeah, cool. All right, so this first episode is going to be a two-parter. Today and then later this week, and the overall arch is the Battle of the Brits, the Beatles versus the Rolling Stones. But it's not going to be limited to just them. We're also going to talk about other artists that are either influenced them, who they influenced, and just overall anything having to do with that era. But I'll just go ahead and start. Who's better, Aaron, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
That's an easy question for me, just because it's the Beatles for me. I mean, I know that the Stones have their diehard fans, and I get it. Here's the thing. I figure there's two types of bands that I don't like as much. Okay, there's the band that I don't like as much that I can't figure out why anybody likes them, and then there's the band that I don't like as much that I get why everybody likes them and why they're popular. They just don't do it for me. That would be the Stones. I get it. I mean, I get the impact of the Stones, and they have some cool tunes. They have some cool tunes that I really like, but for the most part, they just don't do it for me as much as the Beatles. The Beatles, I think, were just, the Beatles. That's the answer to your question.
Yeah, well, of course, I think the Beatles are the greatest band that ever lived. And like for a time, I guess you would call them they're like my favorite, but Smashing Pumpkins are my favorite band because it's just almost too cliche for the Beatles, but I adore the Beatles. And I don't know, it was like there was remember in the mid 90s when they had that like revival and they had the anthology stuff come out.
Yeah.
And that was around the time I started getting into the Beatles, and I remember it took me my whole freshman year of high school, but I bought all their albums over the course of the year, and some of them were gifted to me or whatever, but I went Camp Beatles. Go the route of the Rolling Stones, even though the Rolling Stones are an amazing band, and they have made a ton of great music.
Yeah, I mean, they really do. And let's say this, I mean, just right off the bat, the Beatles are like, they're the Fab Four, right? I mean, it's John, Paul, George, and Ringo. The Stones are Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and then there's the other two guys. The other two guys are, I mean, I'm going to offend some Rolling Stones fans out there, but the other two guys are back there, and they're really important. But let's face it, it's about Mick Jagger and Keith, and Mick Jagger is perhaps the best front man that's ever been. Like in terms of just
he's pretty good front man. Yeah.
In terms of like charisma.
Oh yeah.
He's the man has more charisma than any human being deserves to have up there.
Still.
I mean, truly.
He's old now, very old.
Right,
now.
He's still got it. He's still got moves like Jagger. They're his moves, right?
Yes.
But no, I'm with you though. Like, I didn't go like full on like Beatles buying all their albums, but that was definitely the stuff that my parents were listening to as I was growing up, and I always really attached to them in a way.
Yeah, so I think and then the Stones might not even be like the second greatest band. I think they have some competition, but we can get into that later in the show or next episode.
Yeah, and who might be that competition?
Well, I think it would be Led Zeppelin.
I would agree.
I think 100%. It would be them, but we'll talk about them later. But so I think that the Rolling Stones have a really good argument to be number two. If you start with their 1968 album Beggar's Banquet, with like Give Me Shelter on it and Street Fighting Man,
Sure.
and then they go into Let It Bleed and Sticky Fingers and Exile to Main Street.
Exile to
Those
Main
are
Street.
like that chunk of the Rolling Stones is like Hall of Fame worthy all its own.
Oh, yeah,
their own.
absolutely.
It's like
Absolutely.
I think a lot of the songs, from the Stones comes from like 68 to 72. Subtract, Paint It Black or, Can't Get No Satisfaction. But that is a really good inspiration, innovative period for them.
Right.
That uplifted them because let's just face it. So what is it, like 1964 when the Beatles really come to America?
Right.
And basically they just slap everybody.
They just owned it.
Say,
they're like, okay, so
you're on notice.
Yeah.
Do better music. Because think about what was going on. So you had like the Beach Boys were huge in 63 with their Frankie Valli.
And California
Elvis
Girls
was off doing his own thing. So he
right.
wasn't really. And then all of a sudden, this British band that no one ever heard of in America just comes in.
Just showed up and just, I don't even know.
They just destroyed everybody. And like,
yeah.
So then the question is like, why, right? It's like, what was it about them?
How did they so own the zeitgeist? You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, and so, I mean, we're going to, and, later on when we jump, in a couple of weeks I know we'll be talking about, grunge and alternative. And so we're going to get there, but but I think part of what it is that the Beatles latched onto something that people were ready for at a moment when they were ready for it. Kind of the way Nirvana did when they came on. Like Nirvana Nirvana grabbed something and used it. And that's what the Beatles did. Like the culture was like, there was already like this like seething tension. I think it was in the 60s and culture and aspects of civil rights and everything was just kind of like bubbling beneath the surface. And even though the Beatles' first few albums are like super like, poppy, and I want to hold your hand. Ringo back there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's my Ringo impersonation.
Yes. I hope he never sees that.
Oh yeah, no, you know what, Mr. Star,
yes,
Mr. Starkey. I adore you. Yeah. Love that guy. He's incredible. But you watch him out there playing the drums, and it's like, and all of them, it's like, but somehow it was still like so, the antithesis of what else was going on. It was just like, bam, and there it was, Yep. And then from there, as culture like latched onto them, it's what they did. It's what they started to do and change and evolve into.
Right.
So anyway,
well, one thing that kind of set them apart is four pretty good-looking dudes.
Yeah,
they could all sing.
Oh my gosh, their harmonies were unreal.
Right? And they wrote their own stuff.
Right, they wrote their own stuff.
They're like, that was not like a really big thing. I think one of their inspirations was Buddy Holly because he wrote his own stuff. But most people
didn't.
And I think my mic just went out, but
it's back. You're good.
All right, cool.
I heard it flickered. You're good.
Yeah. I was like, because like the Rolling Stones seem more like, I guess, bluesy as far as like comparing the two. Like, even though all rock is rooted in blues. Yeah,
exactly. Those blues progressions and everything are the fundamentals of rock, right?
Right. But like, so like, because I saw some interview like Billy Joel was like, the Rolling Stones are the greatest rock band, and I'm like, how can that be? But they're a really, really good band.
Yeah, they're a really good band. That's the thing. I mean, they're that's the thing. I mean, like I said, they're not my favorite, but I get it. Like I do, and they have some songs that I love. I mean, songs like Satisfaction and Give Me Shelter and Paint It Black. I mean, Sympathy for the Devil. They're really good songs, and Mick is a good singer and like I said, easily, the only person. Mick is a good singer and a fantastic frontman.
Is he like
Keith Richards is a great guitar player and again, not a Stones fan, so the drummer and bassist are solid. Drummer and bassist, they're a great band. No, Mick is not the greatest frontman of all time. my friend belongs to Mr. Mercury.
Well, I wasn't going to ask if he was the greatest. I was going to say, was he like the prototype for what a front man?
I think he is.
He was the one, and then they kind of like branched off from him.
Mick was, I think it's a great way to say it. Mick is like the prototype of the front man. It's like, all these other bands are out there, and the Beatles, you got John and Paul up there kind of doing their thing, and the Beach Boys have got like Brian Wilson and everybody, and there's Elvis doing his Elvis thing, and then all of a sudden there's Mick, strutting, right, I'm gonna do this thing. More do the chicken.
Yeah.
Right? He's up there and he's doing the thing. And then, so, I mean, yeah. But I think, for me, a better frontman is Mercury. Mercury is the ultimate frontman. That guy is like, and he's probably the best singer of all time in rock.
I would say he's probably the best singer of all time.
I mean, Freddie Mercury, love Queen or not, man.
Right.
Mercury is a boss.
So let's just talk about the Beatles really quick.
Let's do, yeah.
What do you?
I got rambly. I apologize.
That's fine. I don't know if you would be able to pick a best Rolling Stones album since
I wouldn't be able to. I can't.
But for the Beatles, what do you think? What's your favorite? I love this question. And then what's your best is?
So hard.
It's like the hardest question of all time.
Like the hardest question of all time. Favorite Beatles album and then the best Beatles album. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I love Abbey Road. And I love Abbey Road. And I love Magical Mystery Tour. I just really Magical Mystery.
Sergeant Pepper. Okay. That's the one you really like?
No, I said it. And I'm like, that's not what I meant. No, I love Abbey Road and I love Sergeant Pepper. But you yourself said, and I think you're right, because I went and I looked and I listened, and I started thinking, Revolver is probably their greatest album. I mean. I think that's what you said, and I think once upon a time we've had this conversation in the past. Gosh, you look at the track list on Revolver, and it's just like, man, that's kind of a monument to rock right there.
Right. I don't know if I said that.
Well, maybe you didn't then. I don't know. What's your favorite? What's your favorite, and what's the best then?
Yeah. So to your Abbey Road point, the thing that bugs me about Abbey Road is on the second side, a lot of that stuff was stuff they had written a year and a half, 2 years before, sure. And they were just like, man, we gotta. The album is very good, of course. It's a really, really.
I mean, it's got like She's So Heavy on it, and
Come Together and Something.
Come Together, and I was like, man, what an album!
I think my favorite is Rubber Soul. It's like the first. It's funny to think about. Let's think Melancholy took 6 months to record, right?
That's when they said, guys, it wasn't Revolver, it was Rubber Soul.
When they recorded Rubber Soul, they had a month in the studio, which was like an eternity for them, right? And you're thinking,
right.
So it was the first time that they really got to experiment. Because if you look at Please Please Me through Help, they progress a little bit more lyrically as you go, but the musically was not it's not like going from Gish to Melancholy as far as music goes. But then when you hit Rubber Soul, you're like, oh man, they're actually really experimenting here, which would led into Revolver, which I think those two are a volume 1, volume 2 to me.
Yeah. But
the things that they were able to do on Rubber Soul and Revolver led to Sergeant Pepper, which I think recently for forever it was number 1 on the Rolling Stones album, but then over the summer or whatever they dropped it, which in the 20s maybe. It's not in the top 10 anymore, which is ridiculous because they pulled out all the stops for that album, even though they couldn't reproduce it live at that time. But the harmonies are there. They're experimenting with
Sergeant Pepper. You mean?
Yeah, on Sergeant
yeah,
Pepper. And the closing of that album, A Day in the Life, is very insane.
That's honestly, A Day in the Life might. So what is their greatest song? And it might be A Day in the Life.
Yeah, I think
it's not my favorite, but it might be their greatest song.
It's
incredible.
John Lennon singing that song is scary, haunting. I think
it is. Yeah.
Of all the polls I've seen, they always pick "Hey Jude" as their number 1 song.
Well, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I mean, I can listen to it over and over again, and I can be in a down spot, and I listen to that song, and it elevates me and elevates my mood.
Yeah.
By the time everybody's singing "Hey na 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 na," I'm singing it with them. You know, I mean, you know. But "Day in the Life" is incredible, and then it reaches that cacophonous ending, and it's just like, you know, all that sound, and it's just like it's intense. You know, I remember my son, you know, is in orchestra, and he was telling me that I guess, and he's really into the Beatles because I'm like a really good father, so my son's into the Beatles. And he was commenting to me that when they wrote that part, Paul was like, and then the orchestra just plays notes, and it's really loud and random, and the orchestra was like, we can't do that. We don't know how. And Paul was like, no, you just play stuff. And they're like, yeah. And my son's like, orchestra people don't know how to just play stuff.
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to say was because you said earlier, like, everybody knows the Fab Four: John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Yeah.
As Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards. The drummer's Charlie Watt.
Right, Charlie Watt. I couldn't remember his name.
A guitarist that they joined in 69 or 71 was Ronnie Wood. But before that, the guy that had Brian Jones, he died. Okay. But do you know any producers of their albums? Of the Rolling Stones albums? Could you name the producer that produced their album? No. You can name the one for the Beatles.
I can, but I'm blanking now.
Well, George Martin, right?
George Martin, right? Yeah, George Martin, of course.
So what is it about that band that everybody knows who they are?
Right. I mean, like, right? Everybody. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I was like, it's so funny. Like, I was organizing my vinyls yesterday, and well, actually, no, Stacy was organizing my vinyls yesterday, and I was helping. But the first, you know, we get them all alphabetized and get them on this nice thing now, so we can, you know, flip through them and keep them in good shape. And the very first thing is am I allowed to? Yeah.
Copyright stuff. I don't know.
I don't know.
You're not promoting it. You're just showing it. All right. Yeah. The red one with the greatest hits.
And then that incredible gatefold photo. Yep. And my point is simply, everybody knows who they are. They just know who they are.
They do. So, like, I want to give the Rolling Stones some love here, but
absolutely, and we should give the Rolling Stones some love because they're a fantastic band.
They have some amazing songs. Like, You Can't Always Get What You Want is an amazing song. Brown Sugar, Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Like you said, they're a fantastic rock band.
They are really good. But I guess here's the thing, though. This is not a random question. It's maybe a trick question.
Uh-oh.
Do you think that because the Beatles ended, that is why they're, you know, like, legend? Because the Rolling Stones have not stopped.
Yeah.
They continued on.
Yeah. And the Stones are still legend, right? They're still legend, but there is something about the mystique of a band that makes music for a short period of time, and what they do is so influential and so revolutionary, and then it just stops.
Right.
That it really feeds into a sense of, like you said, a sense of legend. And so the Beatles, they were making albums for 8 years.
7, 8. Well, 63 they started with their first album, so 63 to 7. So 7 years
of cutting albums, and they'd been playing for a few years over in Britain before that, you know, just playing clubs and stuff, I guess, you know, so basically they were a producing band for 7 years, and they put out how many albums, and that body of work has become such a legendary thing, and then it was over. And
yeah, they ended it. I think once I saw something like, I mean, there were 4 songwriters in that band, you know, Ringo,
absolutely there were.
Late, George, you know, really starting with 65, started to blossom, and one of the greatest Beatles songs ever was like While My Guitar Gently Weeps. That's always insane. That
song is like a freaking work of art.
You had like 4 singers, 4 songwriters in one band.
Yeah.
There's only 2 of them in the Rolling Stones.
Right.
Jagger sings, Richard writes the songs.
Right.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of ego going, you know? Like,
yeah. All 4 of the Beatles are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which we'll get to that.
Yeah. And some of them as solos.
No, all four of us. I'm saying all four are
Oh
in
yeah,
so as soloists. That's the
and
thing
in a
of it.
band.
All four in they're in a band, but then they're all four in as solo artists. That's how talented those four
It's
dudes
crazy.
were.
Yep.
It is crazy.
So yeah, like the Beatles ended. I really honestly feel like if they had held on for like one more year, they probably would have made the greatest, no question about it, the greatest album line. Because like George's, Ringo's, and John's solo albums that came out in '70 and '71,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they could have Beatlized the
Yeah.
songs and made like, but who knows, you know? And
Yeah.
uh, how do you feel about uh, the White Album?
I love the White Album, but I don't love. It's like I don't love all the White Album, but I just love the White Album because it is just weird. It's got some incredible songs on it. It's got some weird songs on it.
It's mostly like a four solo guys that just threw an album together because most
Yeah,
of the songs, not all of them even play on it together.
yeah,
That was like the
no,
end of the beginning of the end, sort of.
yeah. It sort of was, wasn't it? But it
But
is great. I mean, it's got like I think isn't like Rocky Raccoons on that, and Glass Onion and um, Revolution and
yeah, the slow version because the
the slow
single
version.
they release is
Yeah.
which is the one thing that like is amazing about the Beatles is so like there was a standard practice in the industry at the time that you don't put singles on the albums you release.
Oh, really?
Now for some of the albums they didn't do that, but like Strawberry Fields was recorded and written during the Sgt. Pepper sessions. So was Penny Lane, but they didn't put them on that album. They released them as singles on their own. So like,
well, like yeah, Hey Jude was done that. Like Hey Jude wasn't on
the
an
White
album; it was released as a single.
So in the fast version of Revolution, but think about like
that's like the greatest single of all time. Your A side is Hey Jude, and your B side is the fast version of Revolution.
Yeah, or they call it like a double A side.
Yeah, right.
It's just two good songs, right? But think about like the Beatles. So like from 64, 63, 64, and 65, they had 2 albums a year, plus non-album singles.
Yeah.
Movies.
Yeah.
Concerts.
They were busy.
And photos and interviews. Like I feel like one of the reasons they ended in 70 was because they got used and abused. They did 20 years worth of work in 7 years.
Right. No, and you're right. I mean, that really is probably what it boils down to. The fever, the mania of them was so intense. It had to be just draining to a point where like, okay, we're done. We're done.
Yeah, we're done with all the crap. Because like John Lennon was very oh
yeah,
I don't know the word I'm looking for, but he was not. I think what he even said, like once they changed into the mop tops and the suits, the gig was up.
Yeah,
because it was all, if you do this, do that. Like anyway, he was disillusioned. That's what it was.
Yeah, there you
with,
go.
The way that the Beatles went, but as far as like, I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about really quick was so like, this will be the last thing because we're running out of time here, folks.
Yeah.
Rubber Soul was put out in '65, December '65. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys listed it, which I think, by the way, Brian Wilson is an amazing songwriter. And
absolutely.
If he was really in charge, I think they would have had a better ending.
Yeah.
And Mike Love was a different kind of anyway.
But that was when they released Pet Sounds.
Well, Brian Wilson listened to Rubber Soul and was like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest album I've ever heard." It inspired him to write Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
Which then Paul McCartney hears Pet Sounds. He's like, "Oh my God, I got to top this."
Yeah.
And then they did Sgt. Pepper.
Right. And my brother, much love to my brother. For him, Pet Sounds is his favorite album of all time. He loves Pet Sounds. He thinks it's the greatest album ever. And he's not alone. There's a lot of people that think that's just it's a super good album with really a lot of weird experimentation, and the Beach Boys doing some really good stuff. So but like you said, the Beatles pushed, and so Brian Wilson pushed back, and then the Beatles were like, "Okay, fine, here you go."
Oh yeah, because they weren't against like being challenged.
No, absolutely not. I think it probably was good for everybody.
Yep. All right. So that's all the time we have for today, guys. We will continue this conversation, the Battle of the Brits, later this week, where we kind of bring in the other British bands that gave the Beatles a little bit of run for their money and their influences. So
absolutely.
Yeah, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment if you want. Share it around. Who cares? But thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye
Bye.
bye.